Heading out to the Wallach's Farm Project, which is the farm that we've been doing at John Darby's house. And in my car, I have our 3 chickens, a fig tree, and a pot, of course, and all the tools that I like to bring with me when I go somewhere, just in case I need them. Some gloves and hori and things like that. So I have the chickens and the fig in the car because we're moving, and one of our chickens that we currently have, we got from Elliot Darby, who's the daughter of John, and we asked if they wanted them early on. Well, Carrie asked if Elliot wanted them back, and she said yes. So here come the chickens back. Patchy is the one that used to be at the Darby's house, plus 2 more that are now part of Patchy's pack. But when I think about the chickens departing the Walnut Street house that we've lived at for the past 8 years, I think about a lot of like joy and gratitude and this exchange of love and pets and care, for this like composting and really alchemic service that these chickens have provided for us. And so we've done our best to take care of them and treat them well, and let them know how thankful we are for their eggs that come from compost, from our waste, and just how beautiful that relationship can be if you're not exploiting it like the industrial, like many in the, well, we'll call industrial bad, like the industrial egg industry. But what it also makes me think about is how hard we had to fight to have them in our burrow. When we first moved there, Carrie's father was a zoning officer in another community. So when we were looking for houses, we were curious about the possibility of keeping chickens, and he reviewed it and could not find a prohibition of chickens in the ordinance. Though there was some mention of a couple of different things regarding agriculture, which is also very scary. It really wasn't prohibited to keep chickens as far as he could see. I seconded that with another zoning person, a code administrator person that I knew. And we were like, well, this is great. Let's get this house. And we got the house and we got the chickens, and everything was great until a giant 60-foot pine tree. I don't know how tall it was, actually. I had not taken my forestry class yet. But this giant pine tree, very old, I'm sure, fell down in an ice storm and took out part of our fence that we had built. And when that happened, people could see into our yard, and they could see that we had a chicken coop, and they could, with the right angle, see the chickens. And then a complaint came into the borough office, which resulted in a citation. And that citation basically said that we had to remove the chickens from the premises unless we appeal. We wrote a letter, and explained that it was every bit within our rights to have chickens, and that we thought that this citation was an error, and that we'd like it to be revoked. But that didn't happen. We had to go in front of the zoning hearing board. We had to pay for that, several $100s, to be told no again, after hearing our case and the shortcomings of the zoning ordinance. And after that, the next step was district court. We started a GoFundMe. Well, before I get there, like, the zoning hearing board meeting was very touching because several of our friends and community members came out and basically explained that including our immediate neighbors, that there was no issue with the chickens in terms of noise or smell or anything like that. So what's the big deal? But that wasn't good enough, and the deficiencies in the we had a lawyer at this point. The deficiencies in the zoning ordinance weren't enough as well. So they basically found once again that the citation was the right thing, and that we should remove the chickens, but we appealed. So through that process, we got to keep the chickens, and while the court case was going on, and in district court, the judge eventually found in our favor. So it took a while, but during that time we got to keep our chickens, but also it took money. We started a GoFundMe fundraiser in which friends and people we had never met before contributed to our legal fund. And in the end, our goal was that hopefully that people would see that the zoning ordinance was not sufficient in terms of prohibiting chickens, and that we were in our right, but also that the keeping of chickens was not so bad. However, in this day and age, anytime, like, all people want to do is hold a grudge. And so us just saying, no, thank you, we think this is right, caused an administration of the borough to hold a grudge and to talk more and more with very straw man type fallacies about how it just wasn't safe for chickens to be in our community. And it cracks me up, because it's like anyone who's ever spent any amount of time with a chicken, like a healthy, not part of the industrial system chicken, knows that they're beautiful creatures that actually are great companions. In many cases, it doesn't take much Googling to find chickens that are totally putty in their mothers and fathers, human mothers and fathers, if you will, hands. And that they're wonderful, and that if taken care of properly, just like anything, like a dog or a guinea pig or a cat, can be wonderful pets. But also, just like anything, there are people who don't take care of their pets well. And if I had to guess, I would say that the reason that anyone was against chickens in the first place is because they had encountered someone who did not take care of their pets well. But another really interesting story that was told to me by the mayor at the time, who was for our cause and our keeping of chickens, he said that there's a certain generation of people who associate the keeping of chickens with poverty. And that really struck me. And I had been reading about, how we got into sort of the canned food preservative fiasco. Basically why prepared or preserved food was so terrible for you, and like why people embraced that and got really excited about it. And about how basically there was this sort of obviously this boom after World War II, particularly after World War II, whereas people were like, we are a wealthy nation, everyone has 2 cars, we don't need sidewalks because everyone drives everywhere. The wife was staying at the house and, taking care of anything remotely, homesteading natured, while the husband would go off to work and make plenty of income for their entire family to survive. And basically, like, in this whole situation, it was like, why do we need to keep animals for food, which isn't, I think, the only reason someone might consider keeping a chicken. But why would we need to do that when we have grocery stores that will always be there and always be fully stocked, which we found to be recently not necessarily the case. So, but like, then you impose that on people who may not be able to afford quality, healthy food that's been raised with a sense of ethics, that would raise chickens in their backyard if they had the choice. But there are communities like that, and they're basically redlined. So that's where the poor people live, and then the wealthy people live in these communities in which the keeping of chickens would be considered poor, and we don't want that around us, right? So that was an interesting insight through that whole thing. So basically, we did end up winning in district court, but the grudge I was referring to was one where they decided to put out an ordinance as soon as they possibly could, before actually filing the final paperwork for our case, that would prohibit chickens in a way that was called de facto exclusionary, which our lawyer told us. And that is that they said if you have half an acre, you can have chickens, and there are maybe 1 or 2 half-acre lots in Marietta, in our community. So, whereas we set out to have, the ability for Chickens for All, including offering to teach courses at the borough at free of charge on chicken keeping, if they wanted to make that part of a license or a certification, if you will. We suggested that they collect a yearly chicken keeping fee that might cover any costs that they would need from having to, check on the living conditions of the chickens or respond to any smell or sound issues. But anyway, all of this stuff was just like, nope, we don't want chickens in our community, and they shut it all down. So I'm now driving up to John's house, where I'll deliver our chickens that we fought so hard for, but to a good home. And as Carrie said this morning, as we were rallying them up, rounding up the chickens, it's the end of an era.